In February of 1959, on this really desolate, wind-blasted slope in the Ural Mountains, a place called Kolatsiakol, which translates to Dead Mountain, 9 expert hikers died in a way that was both terrifying and, well, completely unexplainable. For more than 60 years now, their story has become one of the planet's most haunting mysteries. And honestly, the clues they left behind just make it all so much stranger. So let's start with the one piece of evidence that just breaks your brain. 3 of the hikers had suffered these absolutely catastrophic internal injuries. You know, the kind of damage a medical examiner would only expect to see in a head-on car crash. But here's the impossible part. On the outside, their skin was perfect. No bruises, no cuts, nothing. It was as if some colossal, invisible force had just crushed them from the inside out. But before this tragedy, before they became a mystery, you have to remember who they were. They were a group of bright, really athletic students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. And these were not amateurs, not by a long shot. They were taken on a Category 3 expedition. That's the highest difficulty rating there was. They were more than ready for whatever the mountain could throw at them. Or so they thought. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, and the whole team was this really tight-knit group of skilled skiers and mountaineers. You know, there was actually a 10th person on the trip, Yuri Yudin. He had to turn back just a few days in because he got sick. It was just this random twist of fate that almost certainly saved his life, and it left the other 9 to face their destiny completely alone. You know, thanks to the diaries and the cameras that they left behind, we can actually piece together what their final days were like. And the mood, it was just upbeat. They were having fun, documenting everything, facing this brutal cold with real skill and friendship. Then, on the afternoon of February 1st, they're fighting a blizzard, they're getting disoriented, and they make a pretty fateful decision to set up camp right there on the exposed, treeless slope of Dead Mountain. And then, something went horribly, horribly wrong. So, when the group never showed up at their destination, a search party was sent out. And on February 26th, they finally found the camp. But the scene they stumbled upon wasn't just tragic. It was profoundly bizarre. It was obvious right away that this was no ordinary hiking accident. The whole scene was just a storm of contradictions. Their tent had been sliced open, right? But it was cut from the inside, as if they were desperate to escape something. But then why would they leave all their essential gear? Warm coats, boots, food? Why was it all still there? And the footprints in the snow. They showed the group walking calmly, almost in single file, away from the tent, heading towards the woods over a kilometer away. In temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius, some of them were barefoot or just in socks. The first 5 victims, including the leader Igor Dyatlov, they were found over the next few days. They were scattered between the campsite and a big cedar tree down the slope. And the official cause of death was simple enough: hypothermia. They froze. But that simple answer just opened up a much bigger question. What on earth could have terrified 9 experienced hikers so badly that they would run from their only shelter, underdressed, straight into a fatal Siberian blizzard? For 2 whole months, nobody knew what happened to the other 4 hikers. But then, in May, as all the snow finally started to melt, their bodies were found in a ravine, buried under 4 meters of snow. And it was these last 4 bodies that took a strange tragedy and turned it into an absolute forensic nightmare. And this is where we come back to that car crash force. Just look at this breakdown. The Bobby-Ninals had a crushed skull. Dubinina and Zolotaryev had their chests so severely fractured that it would have taken an immense amount of pressure. And yet, like the medical examiner noted with just total bewilderment, there were no external injuries to match. No bruises, no cuts. It was impossible. But the physical trauma, that wasn't the only disturbing thing they found. The state of their faces presented an even more gruesome and confounding puzzle, one that has really fueled the absolute darkest theories about what happened up on that mountain. Lyudmila Dubinin's body was discovered without her tongue, her eyes, or her lips. Semyon Zolotaryov was also missing his eyeballs. Now, some investigators later said, well, this could just be from natural decomposition in the running water of the ravine, or maybe animal scavengers. But the specificity of these injuries, it remains a huge point of contention and, frankly, speculation. And as if the scene wasn't bizarre enough, they found one final anomaly. Some of the hikers' clothing tested positive for notable levels of radioactivity. It wasn't enough to kill them, sure, but its presence was completely unexplainable. It just didn't seem to point to any natural cause. So what in the world happened out there? You've got a panicked flight from a perfectly good tent, you have massive internal trauma with no external signs, you've got missing facial tissues, and traces of radiation. For decades now, investigators and scientists have been trying to assemble these bizarre puzzle pieces. So let's take a look at the leading theories.
All right, theory number 1. This is the most widely accepted scientific explanation, and it's called a slab avalanche. We're not talking about a huge classic avalanche you see in movies, but a very specific delayed slide of a really dense block of snow. This idea has actually gained a lot of traction lately, especially with sophisticated computer models showing how it could have happened.
So on the surface, this theory seems to check some really big boxes. A heavy slab of snow crashing down on the tent? Yeah, that could definitely explain the panicked exit and those horrific crush injuries without even piercing the skin. But it also leaves these gaping holes in the story. The original search party saw no signs of an avalanche, and it does absolutely nothing to explain the radioactivity or why the group fled so far from their shelter instead of just trying to dig it out. Okay, next up, we have a much more unusual theory: infrasound. The whole idea here is that a rare weather event where high winds interacted with the specific shape of the mountain could have created this low-frequency sound. It's a sound you can't actually hear, but it's believed to be capable of causing intense, irrational fear, nausea, and just pure panic. Now, this theory does tackle that central behavioral mystery. Why would they run? Infrasound gives us a potential trigger for that initial mindless panic. The problem is, it is entirely speculative. It offers a cause for the flight, but it completely fails to explain the brutal physical injuries or the radiation. Now, given that this was the height of the Cold War, and knowing the intense secrecy of the Soviet Union, a military explanation was, well, it was inevitable. This theory suggests the hikers accidentally saw something they shouldn't have: a secret weapons test, maybe a radiological bomb, or some kind of concussive weapon, and they were either eliminated by special forces or they died as collateral damage. You have to admit, this theory is compelling because it seems to tie up all those weird loose ends. It could account for the radiation, the concussive injuries, and even reports from other groups about strange orange lights in the sky that very night. It could also explain why the investigation was shut down so quickly. The problem? There is not a single shred of direct evidence to support it. No records, no debris, nothing. So after months of investigation, what was the official conclusion? The Soviet authorities were left with this case file just full of contradictions and evidence that completely defied any and all rational explanation. This was their final verdict. I'm quoting here. The cause of death was an unknown compelling force, which the hikers were unable to overcome. I mean, it's one of the most baffling conclusions in the history of criminal investigation. It's not an answer. It's a phrase that admits complete and utter defeat, and it basically enshrines the whole event as a mystery for all time. Believe it or not, in 2019, Russian authorities actually reopened the case, and they officially concluded, once again, that a slab avalanche was responsible. But for the families of the victims, and for countless researchers all around the world, that answer is just, it's not enough. It fails to account for too many of the bizarre and terrifying details left behind in the snow. And so, the questions just hang there in the cold air. What force could possibly have the power of a car crash, but leave no mark? What kind of terror could drive 9 seasoned mountaineers barefoot into a blizzard? And what secrets did they take with them into the silence of that frozen, fatal night on Dead Mountain?